these are years when they have fast growth in the emotional, intellectual, and physical parts of their brains and bodies. And sleep is when we are healed. Sleep is when we are restored.
Don't be afraid of the dark. Be careful with stars. Not every light is gonna guide you, baby. Not every light is gonna guide you.
So, Dr. Kathy, a new study involving about 9,400 11 and 12-year-olds asked the tweens and their parents detailed questions about how they used screens around bedtime and then how they slept. The researchers then followed up with them a year later, and a majority of the tweens in the study, 72%, had their own cell phone as they were doing the study. The study found that having a television or internet-connected device in the bedroom was associated with shorter sleep duration 1 year later. Adolescents who left their phone ringer activated overnight had greater odds of experiencing things like sleep disturbance or shorter sleep duration compared to those who had their phones turned completely off at bedtime. Talking and texting on the phone, listening to music, and using social media were all prospectively associated with shorter sleep duration, greater overall sleep disturbance, and a higher factor score of disorders initiating and maintaining sleep 1 year after the study was started. Dr. Kathy, we have talked about different things in technology and how they kind of impact us. I don't think technology is the bad person here all the time, but I do want to bring up this topic because I think that sleep is actually important for teens and for adults and for people just in general. Why is it specifically important for us to focus on sleep for those that are in their tween or teenage years?
You're exactly right. It is very important. And one of the reasons it is very important is that these are years when they have fast growth in the emotional, intellectual, and physical parts of their brains and bodies. And sleep is when we are healed. Sleep is when we are restored. Some people might know that as we're recording this, I have 2 torn muscles in my shoulder. And even though I'm way beyond the tween years, I am working to sleep more because it's when we sleep that the body heals. And that is there's evidence to suggest that or to teach us that. So we need to remember that. Also, the evidence is clear that kids who are sleep deprived struggle in school. And school, whether that be homeschool, private school, Christian school, public school is their life in these years. And when they don't get middle school concepts well, it will affect potentially much of their schooling after that. And we want them to be confident at school, right? Able to focus, able to retain, able to memorize, able to do their very best. Also, there's research, this won't surprise anybody, but there's research that says that when this age group, like any age group, is sleep deprived, they're prone to accidents. And so they walk into walls or, again, have an accident, in a basketball game that they might not have had if they were, sleep full up, if you will. And then really significant, Wayne, depression. There's more mood swings when these kids are fatigued. And one of the things that'll happen is depression, sadness. Just think about it. So, a slowness, a fatigue, even on days when I'm really feeling fatigued, I don't feel normal. And you just sit back and go, okay, wait, why is everything a big deal today? Why am I feeling kind of melancholy and sad? And then if you're not careful, the depression comes as a result of that. So those would be some of the reasons that I would be concerned about sleep for these tweens. I love that they did this study.
Dr. Kathy, there's a lot of things that kind of are presented in this study. What are some of the big takeaways that you think we should kind of glean from these different things that we're finding out or learning, especially with this study?
Well, the first thing I would feel obligated to say is get devices out of your kids' bedrooms. I mean, hello, how often have we said that through the years that it really is not wise for you to allow your children to sleep with their phones. Too many of them wake up and do the social media check and get distracted at night. It interrupts the rhythm of sleep. Some of them are gaming with kids from Romania because it's in their time zone. We know that that's happening. The light effect is there. And so buy them an alarm clock. I mean, the joke is buy them a clock because they're like, no, I have to have it to wake me up. No, they don't have to have that. They just need a clock. And that's not a hard thing for you to purchase them. You can even teach them how to use it if they don't have a clue. And then you keep their phone on a charging station where they can't get to it in the middle of the night. I think that's something that we take from it. I think also there are schools now that are starting later for this age group. The cycle of sleep changes. You might notice this with your own kids, Wayne, that when they begin to age up into this 11, 12, 13, 14-year-old range, they want to sleep in. And that's a natural sleep rhythm occurring. Why God has this happen, I don't know. But the schools in America that are doing elementary schools first and then a bus run for the older kids are finding less truancy and greater attention and greater positive effect of obedience and grades in the middle schools and the high schools. So that's something that I think we could advocate for in the communities where we live.
I love that, Dr. Kathy. I do think that that's a important takeaway that we can have here. I want to ask you as well, kind of with that, knowing that you mentioned schools and what's happening with some schools starting later. I think that there's some other things that as we look ahead to the coming months, or even just kind of in general, there's natural breaks inside of life that really give us a place for us to make some changes. Things like putting a better structure in for bedtime or different things like that. How should we have those conversations with our kids when we want to, implement something different? Maybe we've learned something new that we should do with our kids. Maybe eating vegetables becomes a thing that we start to do at the kitchen table because we found that it is beneficial for us. How do we have those conversations where we want to introduce something new or put new structures when we've kind of noticed something that needs to be tightened up a little bit in our family, knowing that that's going to be probably jarring for our kids? We don't want to make them feel insecure, like, man, mom and dad can't read any more books because every time they do, our lives change drastically. But I want to know, how can we have this conversation in a way that's really, beneficial and supportive and really edifies the spirit of wanting to raise our kids well?
I love that. I love that question. Yeah. Kids will sometimes tell me, I can figure out when my parents read a book or go to a parenting class, everything changes at home. So I think we pray for our kids to be willing to change and transition. I think we stand up for ourselves and say, we have decided it would be better if we did these things. And I think parents can make some changes too, so that the kids aren't the only ones who feel like they've been picked on. And we can even communicate, we're not mean and you're not bad. We just have read the research, we've listened to the reports, we've watched the rhythm, and we don't like the irritable, critical spirit the first hour of the day, and that's because you're sleep deprived. So, we're gonna make some changes here because we must steward you well. This is where you stand up and say that, God has gifted us you for a season and we're going to do well with you. So I think we that's how we start. And then I think we know that change isn't always easy and judgment will be a part of it. So we systematically and gradually implement it. So as an example, if your kids are sleeping right now with their phones, we systematically and gradually make that change. So we start out by every other day you may have your phone. Maybe. Now you might not want to do this. You might want to just do cold turkey and say, we have decided this is best for you. Therefore, it is what we're going to do. But there is a sensibility to think systematically and gradually is easier than cold turkey. So every other day, or you allow them to keep it until 10 p.m. and then you pick it up. And then the next week, they can keep it until 9:30 p.m. Then you pick it up. And the next night, when they go into the bedroom, they give you your phone. And they're not allowed to have it in their room at all. So there could be systems and transitions that you have for even how much tech, what kind of tech they're using, things like that. Okay, let me say another thing that we need to think about between now and the start of the year, related back to that systematic and gradual idea. If they need to be in bed by 9 p.m. so they can be up at 6 a.m. on the first day of school, we need to make sure that we start transitioning to that. You can't let them stay up till 11 p.m. the night before school, sleeping in until 9 every day. So begin to transition with 15-minute breaks probably, where bedtime is no longer 11, it's 10:45, 10:30, 10:15, 10, 9:45, 9:30, 9:15, and 9. And wake up time gets increasingly earlier. So even on the last week of being at home in the summer, their body is beginning to be used to waking up at a similar time of day when they will on that first day of school. That'll be very important to the rhythm of their mind and their heart being engaged.
As Dr. Kathy was talking today, it reminded me of a passage out of Mark chapter 6, and I'll begin reading at verse 30. The apostles gathered around Jesus and reported to him all they had done and taught. Then, because so many people were coming and going, they didn't even have a chance to eat. And Jesus said to them, "Come with me by yourselves to a quiet place and get some rest." This passage is really a fun one. Mark recounts a lot of the different things that are happening as the disciples are really growing in their faith, becoming more bold. They are sent out to go and tell people about who Jesus is, really to heal people. And in this kind of time frame, what ends up happening is Jesus pulls the disciples away to get some rest, to a quiet place, right before the feeding of the 5,000 and right before Peter walks on water with Jesus. There's some dynamics here that are really powerful, almost to this point of, because the disciples take some time with Jesus and rest, they are almost prepared or maybe equipped to step into some of the big things that are coming down the road. It's almost reminiscent of this idea of, rest and have your lamps ready and trim, because the work of the Lord is at hand and he has important things for us to do. So let's make sure that we're at a place where we can do those things. As kids are going through the different things that they have coming up, especially as Dr. Kathy talked about their developmental patterns and getting ready for school and building in and preparing for new habits that will be coming down the pipe a little bit here, there is a dynamic that I think gives our kids courage and encouragement to walk them through these dynamics of what it means to be ready and to be prepared, and how important rest is for that. I wonder if we did these things by telling our kids what we're doing and almost like what we're anticipating. God's going to do something great with you this year, so we need to build new habits of rest, or, God's going to really equip you to do great things later on in life, and so right now we need to get some rest so that you can take on that equipping. I wonder if doing that with our kids can be a bright light that shines and cuts through some of the confusion of, why would I need rest now? I can stay up late and do whatever I'd like. I think that can be really insightful, and I hope that's an encouragement for you. And I hope this whole podcast is an encouragement for you. I hope it really does that, gives you courage. My name is Wayne Stender, and on behalf of Dr. Kathy Cook, we love spending time with you here every week, and we're really looking forward to spending this week with you and seeing you here again tomorrow.